Hey guys, Fred and Sheila McCoy, Hatfield McCoy Museum, Liberty, Kentucky, fredmccoy.com. Sheila's behind the camera.
Hi guys, hope you're having a great day.
Once again, we've been sent some information, and I think it came from maybe Pike County Tourism or their site.
Okay.
Not sure, so I'm not going to say for sure. I don't know, but it says Devil Anse Hatfield hired James York as attorney to represent the captured men. Let me see here. Let me see if I've got this in the order that it was sent. Kentucky removed rewards. What this paper evidently was about was James York was an attorney in Pikeville, and evidently James York, from what I can understand, had married John Dill's daughter. And you got John Dill's house, Perry Klein's house, which was the York house, I believe, something like that, and then Randall McCoy's house. Anyway, the York house is in there between those three historical houses that's there in Pikeville. Now, Randall McCoy's house is now Cherico's restaurant, and very interesting place to visit. I think what they're trying to do is build this York house up. I'll read you the story or some of it. I'm going to ad-lib it. And Devil Anse and his men retaliated against the McCoys because of the arrest and burnt the McCoy's cabin down on January 1st, 88. This story says that Devil Anse burnt the cabin down, or had his boys burn it down, and killed 2 more of the children and so forth, after the 9 Hatfields and associates had been arrested in West Virginia and brought back to Kentucky. Then they burnt the cabin down. No, there hadn't been a whole lot happen over the years, except Randall McCoy trying to get justice, get the governor to up the reward and so forth. But this story here, so the thing is, this is family history. I'm Hatfield and McCoy. I'm actually, if anybody's got a right to complain, some people don't understand sometimes why I get so bent out of shape, but this is actually my family. I can't think of his first name. This is not these people, I don't want to say the other one because I like the guy. He's a good guy. I like him. He tries his best for what he had to work with over the years. But this is actually my family. How would these people like it if I went and researched their family and started coming up and just changing their history altogether? And say, well, your dad was not what he was. Your grandpa did this. How would they like it? And me don't know a diddly about their family history, but I start putting stuff out there. Imagine how they would feel. And that's how I feel. I feel violated. I mean, I don't care if you want to tell the truth, you want to research it, but just that we're totally incorrect. And why you get off on telling people incorrect information rather than the truth, I don't know. Why not do the research and be a historian? Anyway, it says here that Devil Anse and his man retaliated against the McCoys because of the arrest, and they burned the McCoy's cabin down on January 1st, 88. We know that's not right. They were not arrested till after the burning of the cabin, and all the posses got together and they had the Battle of Grapevine. They killed Jim Vance, they killed Bill Dempsey, they brought the others back. Frank Phillips did, to stand trial. Today, the historic York house, the McCoy home, and Perry Klein's home still remain side by side as part of the history of the feud. As the feud goes on, the defense of the Hatfields is not going well. They not only lose the hearing on a motion from the governor of West Virginia to release the prisoners, but they also lose an appeal in the U.S. Court of Appeals in Louisville. The Hatfields appeal to the U.S. Supreme Court, and they lose there as well. At this point, Devil Anse changes tactics. He decides to no longer use James York as his attorney, and he hires Perry Klein to be his representative for his captured men for the Pikeville trials. Now, we know that Perry Klein represented Walt Hatfield. Now, did he represent Walt Hatfield because he wanted to be friends with Walt Hatfield and he thought Walt Hatfield deserved a break? Or did he represent him and give him less than good representation? I don't know. See, Sheila and I feel that Perry Klein was a dignified and honorable person. So if he represented Walt Hatfield, I would think, and Sheila would think, that he done his best. But there are those out there that says Perry Klein just set Walt Hatfield up to be convicted. Well, all of them was convicted. They were all given life sentences except Cotton Top, and he was sentenced to death.
Wow.
So I don't know that he didn't do all that he could do. The evidence was against him. The witnesses was there. They appeared in court, mainly Sarah McCoy. Preacher Ance Hatfield was there. He appeared in court and testified as to what happened the day that they took the prisoners, and he told them to take them to Pikeville and get them out of there before Devil Ance got back. Now he's saying that Devil Ance hired Perry Klein. Well, Devil Ance once said that he paid Perry Klein $500, $1,000 to get charges dropped, to get the warrants recalled, to get the reward dropped. He says that, and he says that Perry Klein sent his money back and said that he couldn't do nothing on it. He couldn't get the governor to recall the warrants. He says that he sent the letter back with the money in it. Really? Really? Wouldn't that be a good thing to have kept on Devil Ance's part? Wouldn't that have been a good letter to have kept, where Perry Klein said that he couldn't get the governor to drop charges and I'm returning your money to you? Or better yet, why didn't he say Perry Klein kept my money? He just took my money and ran. So, you know, with him saying that he returned my money with the letter, almost believable. But where's the letter? Where's the documentation? Where's the proof?
Interesting.
At this point, Devil Ance changes tactics and he hires Perry Klein. Ance Hatfield asked Klein to try to get the governor to remove the warrants for his arrest and the arrest of his men. Perry changes sides and takes up for the Hatfields as clients. I'm going to go on down through here a little bit, because see what they're trying to do here in this story is they're trying to promote this York house. The York house. Now understand, I mean, we've got a friggin' museum. The family, the McCoy family inherited this. This is not just mine and Sheila's. This is the McCoy families. We don't, and the grandchildren. Everybody has a part in this. But it's like the home there, trying to promote this home. It's part of Pike County history. There's 3 homes there: John Deal's, the York home, and Randall McCoy's home.
Yeah,
and that's history. And as you read through this story, they are trying to make this home famous. And I'll go on here and you'll see what I mean.
Okay.
James York and Randolph McCoy met, and they decided on a compromise. The McCoys will back down on their pursuit of the still at large Hatfield gang members. Now, they're saying here that Randall McCoy has agreed. He's going to back down. He's not going to pursue the warrants, the charges against Devil Ance and the rest of them.
Wow.
Now let's go on, because you know what Jim McCoy says. We've got a story in here somewhere where Jim McCoy says what?
He owes it to the dead to get justice for them, the ones that they killed, and he owes it to get Devil Ance, to arrest Devil Ance and his kin.
And as long as there's a breath in him, he'll never stop trying, and he'll never forgive them.
He's became a poor man, he said.
We've done a video on it. Read that video. Read that guy's newspaper article. Read what Jim McCoy said, and see if that sounds to you like in that year that was written, and that was toward Randall McCoy's death. That was toward the end of Randall McCoy's life. And see if that sounds to you like somebody that has signed a truce or wanted to make up or agreed to make up. Now here's where it goes to it at. It was at this point James works up the deal resolution to the feud. Randall McCoy, according to the York's descendants, Miss Joanne Johnson, says that Randall comes to me often, nearly on a daily basis, in the front parlor of the York House. Wow, we just made the York House famous.
Yeah.
We just made that parlor in the York House famous. He didn't go to Mr. York's law office. They didn't come to his house. They didn't meet at the courthouse. They met in the parlor of this York House. That at the end of this story, they're trying to raise money to preserve and remodel and do this and that. So now once again, is this true or is this written into history? And you guys have seen Sheila and I enough on these videos to know how much stuff is written into history, how much stuff is put into movies and shown in the history.
And we're just not hearing of this, right?
Well, I don't know how long it's been out. They just sent it to us. Somebody
Yeah,
did.
that's what I'm saying.
Well, we
we
know
just
sent it. I ain't gonna say
no,
her
don't say.
name,
But don't say. Don't say.
Miss Joanne Johnson says that Randolph McCoy comes to me often, nearly on a daily basis, in the front parlor of the York House. This is where they figure out how they are going to settle the feud. The feud was never settled between Devil Lance Hatfield and Randall McCoy.
No.
The feud was never settled, and if it was, then show us any kind of a document. You know, even when Custer and the Indians, before Little Bighorn, before they killed and slaughtered Custer, there was agreements between him and certain Indians over certain properties. They just got him at Little Bighorn, but there was times that Custer and some of these chiefs would come compromise. And they would let them have so much land, let you have so many buffalo, let you have this, and then they'd smoke the peace pipe, and then they'd call a truce, and that happened. Where's the truce at here? Again, Jim McCoy says never, as long as there's breath in him and he's alive. And he didn't. He never shook hands, never done nothing with any of the Hatfields until after Devil Lance died in 1921. And then in 28, a year before he died, he met with Tennis Hatfield and shook hands with one of the sons that had nothing to do with the feud.
Yep.
So why would we believe what's on this page here? Why would we believe this over what Jim McCoy says out of his own mouth? Ending the feud was not so simple. Hatfield's using indictments and warrants against them. They're saying that the Hatfields were using indictment warrants against the McCoys as well as the McCoys against the Hatfields. Possible, because Randall McCoy's named on an indictment. Frank Phillips is named on a warrant. It's not an indictment, it's just a warrant where the governor put their names on a warrant and put out a warrant for these guys. And they're saying here that it was leverage, that the governor of West Virginia done it as leverage, where he could say, we've got warrants on you all, and you all got warrants on Devil Lance. Let's just let bygones be bygones. That's what they're saying in there. James York and Randolph McCoy met, and they decided on a compromise. The McCoys will back down on their pursuit of the still at large Hatfield game. James York explains the situation. Randolph McCoy would have had willing to negotiate. This is not an easy negotiation to convince McCoy to back off, York says. But York convinced him to do so. Then the agreement was made that everybody would back down and the Hatfields would move to Logan, West Virginia. The McCoys had already moved to Pikeville. Stay away from each other. All these negotiations. Now listen here once again. This is on your historical page. See if there's an alternative motive here. Once again, all these negotiations took place in front parlor of the historic
Front parlor, yeah.
of the front parlor of the historic York House.
Wow.
Why are we emphasizing the York House? Why is Miss Johnson over here wanting to talk about the parlor? James York represented McCoy's to the feud, the county's most famous feud right in the county's most famous feud, right in the front parlor of the still existing York House. This agreement was worked out in the front parlor of the still existing York House. There's four times that we're talking about the parlor and we're talking about the York House in a story that is fabricated and says that Devil Anse and Randall McCoy, it's over with. Randall McCoy's called a truce. Now, Devil Anse wanted to call a truce. Devil Anse had warrants on him. Devil Anse was wanted for murder that they sentenced his brother to life in prison for, that they hung Cotton Top for. He was the ringleader. Maybe they would have given him death, like Cotton Top. He was the ringleader. He was the instigator of that. In order for the visual history of the Hatfield-McCoy feud and for the York House 5 times to continue again, the York must be preserved and be placed in historical significance in downtown Pikeville.
Wow.
Please help her to live again. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I could be. I'm not going to go look it up. I'm too busy making videos. You can do it. Go to. I ain't had a chance to go get it. I don't really like to even click on their page to give them a hit because, well,
it's okay.
Guys, Randall McCoy went to his grave with hard feelings. He was a Christian man, but he went to his grave with hard feelings against Devil Anse Hatfield and hard feelings against the justice system, because the justice system let him and his family down. Lost 5 members of his family. Now, he got a little bit of justice in the end when Johnsy was sentenced to life. Wall died in prison. Cotton Top, he wasn't so proud of. They didn't want Cotton Top to die. They wanted him to go to prison. They didn't want him hung. Him and Sarah, neither one. They were good Christian people. They wanted justice, but they didn't want him to hang because they felt that Cap is actually the one that killed her. Once again, this story here seems to be more toward preserving the York House than it is towards the truth about any kind of a truce. And you know, once again, it's funny, and it's just like the people we've been discussing the last few videos, 6 or 7 different people that's wrote things into history, and we've tried to correct, and we've said, where's the document? Where's the documentation? You know, if this lady here is part of the York House Foundation or a descendant, I think it said she was a descendant.
Seems like
now that I think back, I think it said Miss Joanne Johnson says that Randolph McCoy met often, nearly on a daily basis, in the front parlor of the York House. This is where they figured out how they were going to settle the feud. It is at this point that James York works on behalf of the McCoys to help come to some kind of a resolution of the feud. Randolph McCoy, according to York's descendant. According to York's descendant. So, guys, let me ask y'all something. I'm not being facetious. I'm not being mean. I'm asking wholeheartedly. I'm asking honestly. If this is a descendant of Mr. York, the attorney that represented Randolph McCoy, where's the documents? Where's the file? Where is the file? Did we not keep files? Did we not make notations? We've got notations in that 800, 900 page book of ours. We've got all kinds of documents where the prosecutors and different people just wrote memos on. They would be staying at a hotel and have court the next day, and they would make memos on the hotel
napkins
or the little pad that they had.
Writing pad.
The writing pad. It was at the top of the page, the hotel, and we put that in our book because we felt that was important. That was wrote back then in the moment when that prosecutor he wanted to ask a certain question the next day in court while he was in Louisville. And he would write that down. We put those papers in our books. some of the most important papers in feud history probably would be anything at all, where Randall McCoy signed and said, yeah, I want to drop charges against him. I want to go live this life. It didn't happen. Sorry, but it didn't happen. This is just going to be a little snippet. I was getting ready to end that video, and we've uncovered some more stuff, and we just wanted to throw it in on this video. Okay. Just a fast review. Of course, Governor Buckner signed the warrants on the Hatfields, and that's when they decided to get the lawyers. They've been arrested. The story, it says, and it's in the beginning there, but just for a quick review, says that the Hatfields retaliated, and they burnt the cabin down after these guys were arrested over in West Virginia, and Jim Vance was killed and Bill Dempsey and so forth. Simply not true. The cabin was burnt down before. That's what caused them to go to Grapevine. That's what caused them to, all the Kentucky people that joined in with Randall McCoy. That's when everybody got fed up with Devil Anse, and they retaliated. It goes through here and it says, talking about the York home, and it says that the York represented evidently this lady or somebody on this page says that Devil Anse, that York represented Devil Anse's family and so forth like that. Then it says Devil Anse fired York and hired Perry Cline, and it says James York and Randall McCoy would meet. So the Hatfields used their government connection, and now they have Perry Cline to turn the tables on the McCoys, that the McCoys were first doing to the Hatfields, using legal indictments and warrants against them. This person, ever who wrote this on that page, whether it's her or somebody at the tourism, they said that this was going to give them leverage, where the governor of West Virginia signed a warrant on Randall McCoy and some of them for coming over there and getting Jim Vance and so forth. And the governor did sign a warrant. The West Virginia governor did sign it. It wasn't an indictment. It wasn't nothing legal. It was nothing more than a governor's warrant. He just made up a warrant and signed on behalf of Devil Anse on himself. You know, everything that was against the Hatfields was in indictment form in Kentucky. They were indicted before a grand jury, and indictments were returned. We've got several of them in here. But they said that this was just leverage, that Devil Anse was now using leverage with the governor, which is correct, and figured that when they put charges against Randall and Frank and all them, that they'd have something to deal on. The only difference is it was a governor's warrant. It wasn't a criminal warrant. It was nothing more than the governor had filled out a paper and said he got a warrant out for these guys. Now, you've got to understand that when they went to the Supreme Court, it says in there that they had lost the appeals court. They had lost this, lost that, and they finally took it to the Court of Appeals, and they even lost the Court of Appeals. Well, when they lost the Court of Appeals, they said that you couldn't do that no more. You couldn't go over to West Virginia and bring people back without a warrant, extradition warrant from the governor. That means that the charges on Randall and Frank Phillips and those guys at that time, there was no legal justification for those charges from the governor. Again, it's not an indictment. It's something that the governor wrote up himself. And now the Supreme Court has ruled that you can't do that no more. Well, up to that point, there was no law. Remember, West Virginia had just been established in 1863 when they broke off from Virginia. So some of this stuff had never been tried, or none of the cases had come up on extradition or something like that. That's how case law is made. Something has happened in the past, and we use that for case law and stuff for the future to go by. Here's my point. I'll get to the point here. James York and Randolph McCoy would meet and decide to compromise. The McCoys will back down on their pursuit of the still at large Hatfield gang. James York had to explain the situation to the McCoys so he could that McCoy could continue to pursue Hatfield. Now, this, ever who wrote this, I'm not going to say who because I don't know for a fact, but they're giving you an oxymoron here. They're speaking with a forked tongue. They're saying here that James York got Randall McCoy to meet and compromise, and saying that he would drop his charges and West Virginia would drop the charges on them. But yet, and that's over with. But yet it goes on to say the McCoys will back down on their pursuit of the still at large Hatfield gang. James York had to explain the situation. The McCoys can continue pursuing Hatfields legally and pressuring the law in Kentucky to go after Devil Anse and his gang, but the Hatfields can also do the same in West Virginia. West Virginia couldn't do that. That wasn't a legal indictment. That was merely a paper signed by the governor, Devil Anse's friend, who he named his last son, Willis.
Willis Wilson.
Tennis was his youngest son. So, but he named Willis after Willis was born in 2 years before Tennis.
Right.
But he named Willis his one of his sons after the governor of West Virginia. They were friends.
Right.
So, but they're saying that you could drop charges, but you could keep on pursuing. Randolph McCoy would have had to be willing to give up his sons, Jim, and other friends from riding into West Virginia. Well, first of all, they didn't go to West Virginia. Second of all, Jim McCoy was a police officer, could have found him at any time in Pikeville, Kentucky, and especially Randall McCoy. The charges, when it went to the Supreme Court, those charges would have been dissolved. They couldn't do it no longer, but up to that point, there had been no law broken because there was no law pertaining to going to West Virginia and bringing prisoners back on Kentucky warrants. Okay. The indictments were kidnapping. This was not the easiest negotiation to convince Randolph to back off, but James York was able to convince him to do so. Then in the agreement was made that everyone would back off. This person wants you to believe that Randall McCoy agreed to drop charges on the Hatfields, on Devil Anse especially, and Cap and so forth. It didn't happen, guys. It was after the, let me go on. All the negotiations took place in the front parlor of the historic house. We went over that. James York represented the McCoys through all of the feud trials for several years and had worked out the arrangements that put an end to the county's most famous feud right in the front parlor of the existing York house. Listen to this one line. James York represented the McCoys through all the feud trials. Was James York the prosecuting attorney? Was James York seeking justice in court, criminal court, from the West Virginia Hatfields and Associates? No, he's a private attorney. So what would he be doing representing Randall McCoy? Randall McCoy didn't need representation. The state of Kentucky, the prosecutors represented Randall and Sarah McCoy and their families, and on behalf of all their family members. The Kentucky justice system, the Commonwealth attorney, the criminal prosecutor, the county attorney, whatever you want to call them back then. Randall McCoy would not have had to have a civilian lawyer, a private attorney to represent him during these feud proceedings. The state of Kentucky represented him, and they found they represented him well because the people was either given life in prison or hung. So they were represented well, Randall McCoy was, but it wasn't by no private attorney. This was spoken into history, ladies and gentlemen. Now listen, you can continue to believe it. That's up to you. That's fine. No problem. Sheila and I are merely giving you the facts. People sends us these stories. Like I said, we didn't have no date on here. I don't know when this was put on there or where it was at. From what we can understand on a little bit of information that we get in these emails or text us, or could not be true. I don't know. Like I said, some of this stuff we don't go look at. We just take what the people send us and we comment on it.
Yeah.
And if this is what's written on their page, if this is what's there, or this lady has spoken this into history, how old is this lady? When did this happen? When did this lady decide that it was going to be her feat to save the York house and that she needed funds? And in order to get funds, if we're going to get feud funds from the state of Kentucky, we're going to have to make sure that we implement this York house into feud history, because there's money out there for the feud. There's feud money out there, state money for feud tourism. Now, if we can say that this house was involved in that feud at all, we can put a historical marker out front of that and we can get some money for this house. Not that I'm against. Sheila and I are history buffs. We love history. We love old houses. We love old cabins. We love preserving things. I don't want to take nothing away. I hope the house gets preserved. I hope they get the money to save the house. or ever how long ago it was. Maybe they've done got the money. I don't know.
Right.
But our point is, you can't change history in order to save an old house or to get money. You can't change history and say that in the parlor of that house, Randall McCoy forgave and dropped charges on Devil Anse Hatfield. That is something that's never happened, going to happen, did happen. It just, everybody except this story right here has always said Randall went to his grave hating Devil Anse. In fact, most people condemn Randall McCoy because he would never forgive. He just couldn't let bygones be bygones.
Said he was a bitter old man.
Yeah, a bitter old man. He lost half his family to this man over here in West Virginia.
Yeah.
This murderer, this conniving, instigating murderer. And then at the end, he wants the charges dropped, and he wants to, no doubt, some of the story's true. Devil Anse wanted charges dropped. Cap Hatfield, the fight in me has abated me. I want peace. Yeah, he wanted charges dropped after the rest of them hung or went to prison. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, guys. If you don't get my point here, that's okay. I understand. The story's out there somewhere. If you ever run across that story, maybe you'll think of Sheila and I and how we tried to present the story to you, that it's fabricated, that it's false. But if you want to believe it, that's your prerogative, and you go right ahead, but you're wrong. Go ahead, Sheila.
All righty.
Hey guys, first I want to apologize to Sheila because this is the fourth video that we've stopped and started. A fourth supplement that we've added to this video on the York House.
It's okay.
And I know it's long, but if you watch the whole thing, you might be better, more knowledgeable for it. And the reason why is, after we made the last one, I went in there and started researching to see where this lady or gentleman had sent us this information from. You can Google the York House, Pikeville, Kentucky, Hatfields and McCoys, anything like that. It'll come up under Pike County Tourism, Chamber of Commerce in Pikeville. It comes up just all kinds of things down there. In fact, there's a video that comes up, a YouTube video. I just wrote on the bottom of it, this is a bunch of hogwash, and disliked it. So it'll be gone by the time somebody Googles it or goes and watches the video. I think it's about 4 minutes long. And it's basically, the guy doesn't announce who he is. He doesn't say who he's with, what it is. He just tells the story, the same story that person sent us in written form. He does it on a YouTube video. Mm-hmm. And it's hogwash. He says there in 1889 there was a truce. 1891, there was a truce. Don't say what day, don't when it happened, where it happened. And he shows a newspaper article, and it says a truce. Peace or something like that, and it says, if you read the first line of it, you can't see the rest of it, it's blurred out, you can't read what the story says, but it says that Devil Anse Hatfield says a peace treaty declares peace. Devil Anse Hatfield declares peace. Boys, if you've got two parties involved in a feud or a fight or a war or an argument, and you're going to have a peace between them, it takes two. You can't say Fred McCoy done this. You got to have the second party. Devil Anse declared peace. Devil Anse can declare peace till the cows come home. Randall McCoy never declared peace with Devil Anse Hatfield. And this gentleman brings up in that video once again that Randall McCoy was afraid that his sons was going to be
persecuted or
tucked to the gallows. Yeah. He was afraid, so he had charges dropped. There was no charges in West Virginia. That was something that the governor of West Virginia had signed on his letterhead, on his paper, a governor's warrant. What part of the criminal justice system did the governor play? The governor's play roles in signing executions, sentencing people to death. The governor signs extradition, bringing people back across state lines. Your prosecutors, your Commonwealth attorneys, your county prosecutors, state prosecutors, they are responsible for filing criminal charges in our states, even back as far as 1888, 1889. That's where, and it went to the Supreme Court. When it went to the Supreme Court, the charges were dropped because the Supreme Court ruled that from this day forward, you can't go to another state and bring their citizens, take them out and take them to another state. You can't do that legally. You have to have a governor's warrant. A governor's warrant means extradition warrant. It's where one governor asks for the extradition of the people to his state from another governor, and they sign it, agree to it, and they send them over there. Willis Wilson didn't do that. He didn't send Devil Anse and Cap and all of them. He wouldn't do it. He refused to surrender them to Kentucky authorities. And he signed that warrant, that paper that you see that we've done videos on with Randall and all of them on it, because one guy says Randall McCoy didn't lead them anywhere. Well, he led them to West Virginia. But the paper that Willis Wilson signed there is the so-called warrant is not worth the paper it's written on once the Supreme Court ruled that you can't do that no more. Because up to that point, there was no case law on it. Nobody said whether it's legal or illegal till the Supreme Court did. And once they said it, now had they went back and done it after that, then they could have got criminal charges. So for this person to say Randall McCoy dropped charges against Devil Anse and called a peace because he didn't want his children arrested or anybody that went, that's not true. That is spoken in the history. It's written in the history. I went on this video too long. I'm so sorry. But this started out as not even interesting to me. The York House, a big deal in the Hatfield-McCoy feud. The York House. I started not to even read the article when Sheila gave it to me, the stuff that they had sent. And now that I went and looked on the internet, it's on there. The exact papers that they sent us, it's on there. In fact, I'm going to screenshot it and save it to the computer for future references. But it's not just Pike County Tourism. It's the Pike County, whatever this thing was that this video was made by. I forget who he's with, History. Probably just a made-up site, to be honest with you. Probably something somebody just made up, just like they did some of these other Facebook pages, Historical Society, LCC, and so forth, that people's making up their own historical sites now. Guys, I'll tell you, this was an interesting story for somebody that we wasn't even interested at first.
No.
And it turned out to be one of the more interesting stories that we've
pretty interesting, yeah.
done in a while, because it's so fabricated and so well fabricated, so well spoken in the video. If you listen to that gentleman and Fred McCoy and compare, you'll say, whoa, too bad Fred McCoy's not like that. And it is. I wish I could speak like that. But see, that's where you're hornswoggled. You're hornswoggled. You listen to me, hyper, loud,
Passionate.
You listen to me and you think, man, what's wrong with that guy?
He's giving.
I'm mad as hell is what's wrong with me. I'm mad because people's done this, and no matter how hard we try, we're never, ever going to be able to catch up.
No.
And we're going to quit this eventually. Someday we're going to quit this Hatfield McCoy history correct, and we got to get alive.
And do adventures.
we're retired now. We've got to start on the adventure part. Yep. My back's doing better, and we're going to stop this eventually, because my blood pressure, when I see, I went in there to screenshot who done this story initially. Oh, Lord. Well, there's several of them done it. Yeah. Big Sandy Museum.
Heritage or something?
Huh? Big Sandy Heritage Museum. There's all kinds of them down to that's done stories on the York House. Yeah. And I'm sure they're trying to raise money for it, and that's fine. And again, they're just trying to fix it in with the Hatfield-McCoy feud where they can get some of that state aid money. But that don't make it right. Don't make it true. Sheila already done this 3 or 4 times, so I'm just going to kill it right here, and then she can do her thing on the other part. Thanks.
Hi guys, hope you're having a great day. Please like, subscribe, and share, and we'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Thank you guys.